This is Jonathan Barber, and you're watching Time to Connect.
Hey, Jonathan Barber, thanks so much for taking the time to connect, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to talking to you. I've been diving into your music and very impressed with your music and want to talk about that and talk about some of the projects that you're involved in, what the future holds for you. But let's see. First, are you coming to us from New York?
Actually, Connecticut, my hometown, Hartford. Since the pandemic, I relocated back here, and I'm not too far away from the city. It's only a 2-hour drive. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
nice. And you're from Hartford, Connecticut originally, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. But basically playing based in New York City.
Yeah. Yep. I was there for 6 years, and a good 6 years.
Yeah. And a lot of that time you played at Smalls, is that right? Was one of your venues?
Yeah. Especially regarding Vision Ahead, I would hold a, a Monday slot starting at 1 a.m., believe it or not, for many years. And that's kind of how the band not formed, but kind of became legitimate to
Hmm.
the industry and really got a lot of face time with the audience and be able to kind of cultivate repertoire, which led us to, make an album and another album. And from there, kind of established us.
Yeah. It's great. It's a great club for sure. Well, how you mentioned that's not really how the band formed. How did the band form? Let's might as well address that question.
Yeah, so the band formed in college at the Hart School of Music, Jackie McLean Institute of Music in Hartford, Connecticut. And when I was a senior, that's when kind of like the band really took shape. Because when I was a senior, the pianist of the band, Tabor, he was a freshman, and I believe Andrew Renfro and Matt DeWanzik were either sophomores or juniors. They were somewhere in between. And but that year, we would play a lot together, and we'll probably go over someone's house and play some tunes and arrangements, and we'll kind of bring original music, and that kind of formed the brotherhood and like the synergy sonically. And then once everyone graduated college, Tabor and Andrew got accepted to Juilliard for their masters, and Matt DeWanzik, he went to I believe it was Sony Purchase for his masters. And I hit the road. I was playing with people like Jeremy Pelt and J.D. Allen and Wallace Roney. And so I didn't really get my masters, or I didn't get my masters. I didn't go back to school, but I just
You got your
hit,
road masters.
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so they had to go to New York, obviously. And so they needed another roommate. And so they're like, man, I think you should, you know, move to New York because you're already playing a lot. And by that time I was kind of comfortable living at home and going to New York. But they were right. It was time for me to move to New York and kind of get that experience. And so once I did that, it opened up so many other doors.
Yeah.
Obviously being more accessible and just being inspired, being, at everyone's fingertips, and also having accessibility to everyone around me as well. So that kind of really formed the band because we were all living with each other at one point. And so from there, it kind of just grew. And then once I felt like, okay, I think we, can hold our own in this industry, and let's kind of push it forward. I wanted to create a name for the band. So before it was pretty much, Jonathan Barber Quartet, Jonathan Barber Quintet.
Hmm.
And so at the time we were a quartet, and so I was thinking, okay, I'm hearing another voice, and I think I kind of wanted to be a quintet. So I was kind of brainstorming, and then Godwin came to my mind, and he's from Connecticut too. He's from Bridgeport, and he went to Berkeley, but he's from Bridgeport, and he lived in New York at the time. And I was like, man, I think this still kind of holds the Connecticut-based band, the
Nice.
foundation. And so we did a gig together, and he fit right into the band, took it to a whole nother level. And then from there, I kind of got the epiphany of vision ahead of the name, and that's what I knew. That's gonna be the band name. That's gonna be the name of the first album. So it was
Yeah.
it was a nice process of evolution of the band.
It's a nice name. Is anything that you want to say about how you came up with Vision Ahead and what your vision is of that name?
Sure. So it came to me the end of 2016, actually. So November 30th of 2016, I lost my brother unexpectedly. And having such a unexpected tragic loss, it kind of puts everything on pause for a moment, and
Yeah.
during that time I was very reflective of life and career, and just just trying to figure out how to carry on, because I knew that something like this, you can never move on from it, but you can totally carry on from it. And so it just hit me one day. I was just kind of like cleaning around the house, and all of a sudden the words Vision Ahead came to me, and I was like, man, that's it, that's the name of the band. And also that's a phrase, or words that I kind of hold near and dear on continuing to progress in life. And I think a lot of times, being a drummer, being a musician, we all have a vision, right? We all have something that we all kind of aspire to be. And as life progresses, sometimes it kind of makes our vision blurry, or we kind of get off track. But it's important, like, no matter what, while we're still here and have breath in our body, we still have to keep our vision, the vision in front of us, to achieve and to reach, and not, slow down, or not give up. And on a musical level, I think, for me, Vision Ahead is honoring the legacy of all the greats. And I recognize that I stand on the shoulders of so many great musicians, and the innovations that they have contributed to this world. But I also, have my own thoughts and ideas that I want to express to this world. And there's a thumbprint that I would like to put within this generation, in this era of modern music. So that's kind of a way to kind of honor the past, but then also kind of present something forward to the future.
Nice, nice. Yeah, man. One of the things that really interests me is how we have to negotiate tensions. The tension between being true to ourselves, but also honoring the past, and allowing the other people to influence us. The tension of letting go of the past and moving forward, while at the same time honoring the past. The tension of trying to be original, but also staying within a framework.
Right.
You're not going to create something completely new. Some people would say there's nothing new under the sun, but
Right.
one of the things that I've been impressed with, as I've been kind of paying attention to the careers of some of the young jazz musicians like yourself, and are you still in your 20s, or have you gotten to your 30 now, 31, something like that?
Yeah. As of November 6th, I turned 33.
Ah, happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you.
But still pretty young, and there are a lot of really great young players coming up. Emmanuel Wilkins and Joel Ross and Kwaku and so many others. And one of the questions I like to ask younger people is, do you see your generation changing things much? Are we just carrying on the tradition? If so, how do you see it changing? Do you think about that? Do you think about kind of negotiating those tensions?
Yeah, I think all the above. I think, tradition is kind of set on us, it's set on breaking a barrier and establishing something new. When I think about, Charlie Parker, we may label him as, traditional bebop, but at the time that was very progressive. When you think about John Coltrane, what he was doing, we might call that traditional within the school system, but that was very progressive.
Yeah.
And so I think, for me, it's about just being present and adapting to what's around me, and making sure I'm as aware as possible, and also being a voice for also what's happening as well. So
Right.
for me, as I mentioned, I think, my goal is to kind of make sure I put my thumbprint within this era of music, because, I'm in it and I'm around it. And so I think I tried not to be too deep as far as to kind of label it of what it is. I think as time will tell, maybe it will become a thing. But for me right now, is I recognize that I am an improviser at a high level, and my goal is to create music with some of the best musicians of today.
Yeah.
And whatever comes out of that, I'll let it be for people to decide.
And that's why we call it jazz. I think,
Yeah.
it is carrying on that kind of staying in the moment tradition that we love so much. Well, let me back up if you don't mind, and maybe talk a little bit about some personal history.
Uh-huh.
What were you like as a kid?
Oh man, I was full of energy, and I definitely gravitated to the drums at an early age, due to my father. My father's a drummer, and we started in the church.
Mhm.
And the cool thing about that whole experience was, at the time, it was a family church. So my father's sister and her husband started a church. Um, and so at the time they rented a YMCA. And so every Sunday we would have to bring all the gear to the YMCA, set it up, have service, break it down, bring it home. That was what it was every Sunday. So, at the tender age of like 4 or 5, I was like my dad's drum tech. I was his roadie, bringing his drums in, helping him set it up. So I was fascinated by all these different pieces that made up the drum set. And at an early age, I kind of knew what a bass drum beater did, how to put on a foot pedal, what a clutch was, and the
Mhm.
difference between a crash cymbal, a splash cymbal, a ride cymbal, the different sizes, like the tones. I would go with my dad to the drum store, and he'll pick out, different drumsticks and drum heads. So I was just so fascinated that all these different pieces kind of makes up a sound, but it also makes up a personality too. And so from there, I was like, oh man, like that's what I want to do. And the cool thing about my upbringing, I didn't realize until recently, is the fact that my dad played a lot of instrumental music that wasn't necessarily gospel music. And I remember, or I would hear times of people, growing up in church, that it was taboo to listen to quote unquote secular music, maybe based off of the message or based off of the words.
Mhm.
But if it's instrumental music, it kind of is up to interpretation of how you feel, and it's not really as concrete of like, oh, this is
Right.
secular music. Or so he would play a lot of Yellow Jackets, a lot of George Duke, people like Jeff Lober, um,
Weather
you know,
report.
yeah, Weather Report. I
Yeah.
mean, John Schofield. I mean, just like there's all this kind of music. And so I just remember just like listen to him, like, man, that's cool. Like I can identify some of it within the church, and some of it was like, wow, like I never really heard it before. So I was listening to drummers like Omar Hakim and Will Kennedy, and Dennis Chambers, and Steve Ferrone, like, and without even really knowing it until when I got older, I kind of went back to some of those records and saying, oh, that's Will Kennedy, like, oh, that's Dennis Chambers.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I kind of had this blend of influences that were almost like seeds that are just birthing all this kind of musicality and characteristics into my playing, and I didn't really even realize it. So I think that was just like a nice naive start
Yeah.
of my musical journey. And so to fast forward how I got to jazz, this is I completed the junior year of high school. And I remember my mom, looks at me and says, it's time for you to get a job. And so I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do for the summer. And so she found this after school program called the Arts Collective, which hosts a summer camp for, music, singing, dance, visual arts, even martial arts. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And the cool thing about that is if you audition and got in, you'll get $100, a week. And so at 16, I was like, oh man, this is some good money. I'm like, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went there, then I realized, who Jackie McLean was. And at that time, he passed that year. This is the summer of 2006. So I went in June and he passed, I want to say March of 2006, but his wife was still running the program, and his son, Renee McLean, was over the orchestra, the big band. And so I got really close to them, and that really transcended my whole uh view of music and my introduction to jazz. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And then I got the realization that, oh, I can go to school for music as far as college. I can learn how to read and write music and theory, and which I didn't know. I just thought, you can play in church or it's kind of a hobby. I just didn't know that bridge. So they were the bridge to help me realize that I can really cultivate my musical skills into a career. Yeah. And I can do this full time, and I can have a great life, and I can make a living, and I can, support myself and support my family and all this stuff. So that was just an amazing year and summer for me, and which led me to go to the University of Hartford, because not only did Jackie McLean founded the after school program called the Arts Collective, he also founded the Jazz Studies program at the University of Hartford. So it was like, boom, I'm going to this program. Now I'm going to college. I already knew where I was going. And a lot of his band members, Renee McLean, Nat Reeves, Steve Davis, Eric McPherson, all taught at the University of Hartford. So it was just like a shoe-in. It was like almost like a family kind of rites of passage kind of thing. Yeah. And so that built so much in me, and also it established a community. I really got to identify, my community and my village, which, I'm still connected to this day, and it really helped me be the musician I am today.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Hey man, let me close this these blinds here. I feel like I'm washed in the light here. Okay,
got you.
Much better. Yeah, man, that's really cool. So, what kind of music were you listening to before that? When you were maybe a young teenager, what kind of music were you steeped in at that moment?
Yeah, so on the gospel side, it was people like Fred Hammond. That was a huge influence of me. People like John P. Key was another one. Um, uh, there was another gospel artist that was local that had a huge influence on me as well, called Hubert, his name was Hubert Powell, okay, from Hartford, Connecticut. So those were kind of the ones, and also like just different choirs that I'm kind of drawing a blank on, but I would listen to a lot of those. The Winans was definitely one. Another group called Commission was definitely one as well. And then as far as like the instrumental music that my dad would play was like George Duke, yes, Yellow Jackets, Weather Report.
Yep. Yep.
Jeff Lober was definitely one. So I was just kind of like listening to those, but at the time I didn't realize that I was listening to Jeff Lober. He would just play the recordings,
right?
And then I'd be like, oh man, like that's really cool. Or, that's a really good groove, or I like this melody, and also it kind of gave me this really understanding at an early age about the song structure and melody and playing melodic and phrasing. You know what I mean? And so when I got into jazz, it wasn't a big jump, right, because like I heard that style before, but then I can look at the picture a little closely and see all the details and try to emulate those details.
So did you ever get into any other genres, and rock, hip hop, anything like that?
A little bit. Yeah, like due to my brother, he was definitely into way more other styles than I was, because he was much older. So I remember he played me Jill Scott for the first time, who was a nice I guess R&B neo soul singer. And so that's one of my favorite singers of all time. I love Jill Scott. And so I remember like listening to that and my mind getting blown. And Erykah Badu was another person that was just amazing and had so much soul. And Tribe Called Quest was definitely one. I'm a big influence of Q-Tip. So he would kind of, play a lot of stuff like that. And I'm just like, wow, like that's really cool. I can just, play video games and just like, zone out to that stuff. So I was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
doing that as well.
yeah, right on. Was there a moment, do you remember a moment when you said, "I am gonna be a professional musician. This is my life. I don't even wanna consider anything else. Music's gonna be my life."
Yeah, probably that summer going to Arts Collective.
Yeah,
I knew I wanted to go to school um for music. And then I guess like sometime um when I was at the art school, I was just like, yeah, I'm in it
yeah,
and I'm gonna work my butt off to
yeah,
really be a professional musician. I had a list of musicians that I wanted to play with. I was going to New York a lot because again, it's
yeah,
only a
yeah,
2 hour drive. Uh and so
yeah,
I was just constantly, online seeing who's playing at Smalls, who's at the Blue Note, who's at the
yeah,
Vanguard,
yeah,
who's at Dizzy's, who's at Smoke. And I would just kind of just like
yeah,
just research. And
yeah,
then if there's anyone that caught my attention, oh, they're playing there, I'm going.
yeah,
Or if any of my teachers were playing in New York, I was going.
yeah,
And from there, I was just meeting tons of people and going to jam sessions and not always playing, but just kind of just scoping out like who's who, who's what, like who's sounding really good. And taking notes and going back to Hartford, going back to the practice room and sharpening my skills. And sometimes I'll play and then they'll be like, oh, like who's that drummer? Then I like vanished, because
right,
I was like in Hartford. And so it was a nice way to kind of like, you know, s- know, get a blueprint of the scene
mhm,
and know what's going on. And then also kind of like see different loopholes that I can kind of fit in and, be seen and kind of make some noise in
yeah,
the scene.
right on. And who would you list as some of your favorite contemporary drummers?
Um, okay, so like coming up, um, first I'll say like my teacher, Eric McPherson, now sheet weights, Ralph Peterson, Lewis Nash, Gerald Cleaver. Like to me, like that's like my top five
Mhm,
guys that I became really close with through my development.
mhm,
And they all had an influence with me hands-on. Again, I studied with Eric McPherson for 4 years at the University of Hartford, and so he's my mentor and just like family to me.
yeah,
And as far as people kind of close to my age, again, I remember when I got to New York and wanted to just do this thing at a high level. I would always look up to three drummers, which were Kendrick Scott.
yes, I've had
Um,
Kendrick on here.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's my buddy and like a big brother to
yeah,
me.
he's great.
Um, Justin Brown was
Uh-huh,
another drummer, and Marcus Gilmore. To
yeah,
me, those three were pretty much,
yeah,
running the scene.
that's a nice
Playing.
trio, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is. And almost like anyone that I, anybody else coming up that I went to play with or any records I really liked, it was pretty much one of those three guys, that were on it.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I have a high respect for those guys.
right on. Uh, One of my favorites, he's a little older, but he's definitely contemporary, is Brian Blade.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's
Well, speaking of Brian Blade, fun fact, 1970, the year of 1970, Brian Blade was born, Gregory Hutchinson was born, Nasheet Waits was born, and Eric McPherson was born. And so to
nice.
me, the Fantastic Four. That's a powerful, year of the birth of drummers that pretty much embodies modern drumming. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Now you have played with a pretty impressive list of people. You mentioned a couple of them. You did mention Pat Metheny. You've played with Pat. I mean,
Mhm.
it's pretty cool. Who's someone still playing today that you've not played with that you would like to play with? If you got a call this afternoon for someone and said, "Hey, are you available for this date?" Someone that you would say, "Oh, yeah, man, I want to play with him or her."
Ooh, that's a good question. You put
We're
me
going
on a
to put that
spot
out
here.
there into the universe, and maybe it'll happen.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'll probably off the top of my head, I'd probably say Herbie. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely be Herbie.
yeah,
I mean, I would love to even have a conversation with him like that.
yes,
That alone would just almost be it. But yeah, I would love to create some music and improvise with Herbie.
yeah,
Um, I'm sure another name will come to me. John Schofield. That's another guy. I mean, he's
Yeah.
doing so much right now, and I've seen him kind of have all these different bands and these different interesting configurations that I would love to,
Yeah.
be a part of it and um and kind of put my own thoughts into his music.
Yeah. That'd be
Um,
cool. Have you seen
yeah,
that? Speaking of some of the projects he's doing, have you seen that that thing he's doing with Mono Neon and Larry Golding's
yes,
Scary Goldings?
yeah, yep.
Wow.
That's a perfect, yeah,
Yeah,
thing
you'd fit right.
that I'm talking about.
I think you should play a session with them. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Now, one game I like to play, a little pretend game, is you
Hmm.
can bring one person back from the past and just hang out with them and play a little music with them. Who would it be? And it could be anybody.
Hmm. Oh man, that's one musician in the past that I can that's a tough one. But okay, um I'm not gonna say the obvious because I think all the greats, that's, of course we will want all the greats to kind of, to come back, whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I would say it's this one pianist that, for me, that was gone too soon. And I met him, but I wish I was able to play with him. And that's the great Mulgrew Miller.
hmm, okay,
He played a lot with Tony Williams, and I mean, like there's clips I've seen him, play with like Kareem Riggins, and he's on the roads, and Kareem is like, playing some hip hop stuff. And to me, he had such a wide palette of music, and he was a great example of um, playing the tradition, but also sounding like him and kind of, pushing it forward. A great person and great teacher. I've heard nothing but good things about him. And when I met him, he was pleasant, and he was just such a warm-hearted person. So I wish, I could play with him,
yeah,
be
beautiful,
able to play with him.
beautiful. So let's see. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I've got a couple other questions here. Um, let's see. What do we want to talk about? Definitely want to hear what you have coming up, and I'll in the show notes. I'll put links so people can find your records and find your website and find
Mhm.
out the news about you. Yeah, what do you have coming up?
Right now, I just ended a lot of not ended, but I just completed a lot of things. I did 2 tours with Gretchen Parlato, a great vocalist. Um, and I also um, finished this seminar called PASIC that was in Indianapolis, and I was featured as one of the clinicians. So right now, like me just getting back home, I'm just like chilling really hard and
Yeah,
just kind of like taking this whole year of just reflecting and kind of not necessarily back on the drawing boards, but just kind of like getting this next little plan and vision going.
hmm,
So right now I'm writing a lot of music,
okay,
for the band and also for just different projects that I'm excited to kind of dive into in 2023. I'm also the drum professor at University of Connecticut at UConn.
nice.
So, by me not performing right now, let's say, at the end of this year, I'm kind of teaching and kind of doing more stuff like that. So that's been kind of rewarding in many aspects because it's kind of giving art and music on a different level that's
Hmm.
kind of pushing other people forward, which
Yeah,
is a beautiful thing. Um, I guess in December I'll be doing a tour with this singer named Robin McKeely. She lives in Paris. And so yeah, that's pretty much the end of the year.
hmm,
But as far as next year, more stuff with Vision Ahead,
yeah,
some stuff with Terence Blanchard. Um, I've
nice. Oh
been
yeah,
I've been fortunate. This year was one of the highlights of this year was really being close to him and performing with him.
wow,
I did a film with him this
really?
past February that came out in June called Father of the Bride, which is
Okay,
on HBO Max. And so that band was Terence Blanchard, Christian McBride, Gerald Clayton, Charles O'Tura, and Luis Conte on percussion.
Wow.
And so yeah, my
That's some
first
talent
film,
right there, man.
yeah, first soundtrack, and then I also premiered his opera Fire Ship in My Bones in San Francisco. So that was amazing as well. So more stuff is happening with him next year, and yeah, stuff with vision ahead, and then we'll see where that kind of takes me. But yeah,
Man,
it's all good things.
it's exciting. You've got a hell of a future ahead of you. I'm looking
Thank you.
forward to watching it, and I'd love to see you play sometime. I hope I can. I get to New York every now and then. I'm going actually here in a few weeks, and
Okay.
but one time I'm going to catch it. Now, let's finish, if you don't mind, with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you don't have to give short answers, but the idea is short answers. If you want to elaborate, that's fine.
Okay.
Most memorable show that you've ever attended? What comes to mind?
Ooh, that ever attended. Not played, but just in the
Correct.
audience.
You were in the audience.
Probably when I was in high school, I saw this gospel artist, Fred Hammond, and for the first time, and there was a drummer named Calvin Rogers playing out of Chicago, and I just remember kind of hearing the recording, or no, hearing them live sound like the recording, and I was just so fascinated with that. I was like, wow,
Cool.
they're perfect band.
Most memorable show you've played, and I know that's hard because you played so many, but just what comes to mind if you just think of one show that really stands out?
Yeah, I would say my first show at Pat Metheny in Tbilisi, Georgia. I remember after our encore, someone jumped on stage and got tackled, and that's when I realized, like, wow, we are rock stars.
Wow. Wow. Okay, how about the deserted island question? You only get to take one album to listen to, that's it. You get one record. What do you pick?
Oh man.
I know it's a crazy question, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, because it's so many different like so many different moods. I guess, like based on my mood, it's like, okay, I'll pick this record for that record. Honestly, okay, what comes to my mind, there's a Joe Scott record called Live Experience 826, which was like a live in DC.
Okay.
And I just remember that had one of the biggest impacts on me as a kid coming up. And I love live records. So you kind of can, hear everything, like some feedback, and you can just hear them just flowing and vibing. So that's what I'm gonna say. Yeah.
Right on. Favorite venue to play?
Oh man, my favorite venue was the Jazz Standard in New York City. Unfortunately, it closed down. But I remember, playing there, and the sound was amazing. And yeah.
Yeah, cool. What pisses you off?
Liars.
Liars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going around.
Right.
What is your methodology, your approach to dealing with the slings and arrows of life when things are tough for you for whatever reason? You're feeling down. Do you meditate? Is it prayer? Is it just music? What kind of approaches do you have there?
Yep, prayer is definitely one of them. Realizing that life is like a marathon, so you just have to pace yourself. Believing that time will tell, that time is for you, not against you.
Okay.
And always, taking a step back from, the problem or the emotion, and kind of just, seeing it for what it is, and allowing that, that trouble doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And one fun fact too, like whenever I'm feeling like kind of down, every time I eat ramen, I feel better. So ramen is definitely a part of my little regimen of feeling better.
Nice. It's like, it sounds like a kind of a Pavlov's dog thing by now. Now that you've established that, you're feeling down, just eat some ramen and there you go.
Yeah, eat some ramen, man.
What might surprise, that's a surprising thing, but what might surprise people about you? Whether it's a guilty pleasure or something someone would say, oh wow, I did not know that about him.
I like to bowl.
Bowl?
I like to bowl, yeah.
What's your high gain?
I'm a little under 200.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
If I get going.
Yeah.
And it's not regular that I bowl, but I love to bowl. I think it's, it's something that is therapeutic for me, and it's kind of like finding that sweet spot of getting the right ball. You know, like certain lanes might be more oily than others. So for me, it's just kind of like, like understanding, I guess like the room in a sense, like, as a drummer,
Yeah.
I focus my drum sound based on the room and the acoustics. And so it's kind of the same way with the ball, with the lane, it's find that sweet spot for me to like dial in and, get these strikes.
That's pretty funny. It's not that unexpected that your approach is that way. It sounds like a jazz musician's approach to things, and
Right,
that's one of
sure.
the things I love about not only playing music but listening to music is that requirement of being connected
Yeah.
right now, and this culture of ours seems to be teaching us to be distracted. I mean, the way we play music, way we consume music now, you just punch in a number or you punch in a button if you and
Right.
a lot of people who listen to music don't even know what they're listening to, don't care. And I mean, hey, I honor the technology, it's amazing, but I'm
Mhm.
still very much a vinyl guy.
Yeah.
I like being the how it slows you down, it makes you aware of what you're doing, and
Hmm.
so you're going about bowling the same way. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Jonathan, I have just two more questions for you, and we're going to go to
Okay.
the deep. We're going to go to the deep end of the pool now. Um,
Okay.
one question I always ask people is, "What do you think happens when we die?"
What do I think happens when we die? I think we will uh I think we'll meet God. That's what that's what I believe.
Do you have kind of specific concepts of that, or do you just let it be kind of a belief that you'll find out when you get there, kind of thing?
Well, being a man of faith, I I believe I believe in God, and I believe in Jesus. And so by accepting God into my life and having a relationship with him, I believe that there is an eternity, after this. And so uh based on my faith, I believe that after this we'll spend eternal life with our creator.
Nice. Last question: When you are dead and gone, wherever you are, what do you
Hmm.
hope people say about you?
Um that that I love people, um that I gave my heart and soul to everything that I did. Um and and honestly, to me, I kind of leave it to the person. I mean, for me, it's like my intentions is uh always pure and honest and genuine, and that everything that I do, I want to do it at a high level.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of hard for me to say that, oh, I want this person to say exactly this. I want people
Sure.
to say this. I mean, I think if you have the best intentions and do what you believe is right, I think that will have the greatest impact. And I hope that everything I came into contact with, it made them better, or it made the situation better. So
Yes.
that's what I would hope.
Well, man, I feel that from you. I admire your music, but just meeting you today, I got to say you're clearly a really nice guy, and
Thank you.
you got a big heart, and thank you for that. You've got a combination that I really look for in people, which is definitely got a humility and a confidence at the same time, and that's magic. So don't
Thank you.
lose that, man.
For sure. I appreciate
Hey,
that. Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much, Jonathan Barber, for taking this time to connect, and hopefully I'll see you down the road.
Yes,
Take
my
care.
pleasure.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.